Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Fourth and Loud podcast. I'm your host, Jalen Stiff, and today, well, as yesterday, more shocking news came from the Brendan Strader situation as he plans to apply for the NFL Supplemental Draft this year. As states by ESPN's Pete Thamel, Texas Tech quarterback Brendan Sorsby plans to apply for the NFL Supplemental Draft, a stunning reversal in the saga over his eligibility and after he admitted to betting on college sports, as we know that he went to a rehab facility, revealed about the more than 9,000 bets that total at least $90,000 in professional college sports throughout his time, particularly in Indiana and Cincinnati, the two previous schools he attended before transferring to Texas Tech this past spring. As you know, the NCAA was informed and he lost his eligibility. He tried to send in an appeal, it got denied, and then Judge Ken Curry gave him the eligibility to play this year as it's for a temporary injunction, which wasn't the final verdict that most people don't know. But in the meantime, he was eligible until, as I just said, he applied for the NFL Supplemental Draft. So basically, there's been a lot of fuss about this. Sorsby mainly decided to go to the Supplemental Draft after the massive amounts of backlash from not only the college football world, but also from the Big 12 conference. Speaking of the Big 12 also filed a lawsuit about this whole situation, which as we will get to right here. Right here. So basically, a flurry of legal activity over the past week further muddled that path to eligibility. Cody Campbell, who is the chairman for the Texas Tech Board of Regents, has said in a lengthy statement on Monday night that Sorsby would not be a part of the Red Raiders this fall, basically, and called the supplemental draft the only viable and fair option path for Sorsby. It was also stated that Texas Tech will not seek the return of any money paid to Sorsby through his NIL agreements with the university. So basically, Sorsby's decision basically capped off what was going to happen. Capped it on a very active day. Excuse me. Big 12 filed a federal injunction, which it has done on Monday morning, for the right to potentially discipline Sorsby under its rules. Meanwhile, the NCAA asked an appeals court for an expedited resolution to the local case, requesting a decision on its eligibility to be made by the start of the football season. So Campbell has referenced the NFL Supplemental Draft deadline of June 22nd, which is less than a week. No practical way to resolve all the various pending legal disputes and ensure his eligibility prior to this date. So the Big 12 Board of Directors issued a statement after its filing that included a sentence that reviewed the league's stance on Sorsby's playing, stating that universities should not field players who have bet on their own team games in college athletics. I wholly agree. And this is basically about about the whole betting and how the rest of the conference in the Big 12, by the way it feels, especially different teams in that conference, and also states about the let's see what I can find it for how basically right here on that Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormat has been a challenging week for both our conference and college athletics landscape. The Big 12 looks forward to moving ahead as 16 strong. We wish Brandon Sorsby success in the future endeavors. So basically everyone, Texas Tech, the Big 12, the whole college football world, is just happy that this situation is largely over despite the Big 12 lawsuit, and that Sorsby basically made the right decision and decided to head to the supplemental draft, as that would have been his most likely option. Though I have said in past episodes it would have been the supplemental draft or the UFL. Though I think that like this article states, the supplemental draft would have been it would have been exponentially easier compared to the UFL, as he had to wait till, I believe, next spring, if that's how it works. So basically, I say, in my opinion, Sorsby made the right decision. I mean, you faced so much backlash. You made the Red Raiders, a program that no one really hated in the past, into arguably the most hated team in college football, which really should have been LSU. But this whole situation has made Texas Tech seem like the villain, especially when they backed him up, backed him up, and the judge Ken Curry, who's mainly the judge in Lubbock, which is where Texas Tech, the school, is located at, and how he gave him a temporary injunction, and how everyone, all the college football people on the internet reacted extremely negatively against a guy who betted, 90,000 bets, totaling at least $90,000. It was just a whole mess, and I think Sorsby made the right decision to go to the NFL Supplemental Draft, which he'll be the top guy in the Supplemental Draft. Anyway, I mean, it's been said that Sorsby has an NFL caliber level of potential. Is that the right word? NFL caliber. I'm saying tangibles. Besides the whole betting, he has proven that he can play in the NFL. Because there have been former players who also got caught in gambling, and are in the league today. Hunter Decker is the old Iowa State quarterback. He betted one game against for his team at Iowa State, a game that he didn't play, and the NCAA found out he lost his eligibility forever. But he's on the Saints practice squad right now, and that he's an example. He's an example. So hey, I feel like maybe for Sorsby, this could happen to him. The best case, it could happen to him. He can be picked up by an NFL team, maybe not as a starter, more as a backup, a solid backup. Backup, lowest floor, I would say, if he does make it to the league, lowest floor it will be a practice squad. The highest floor would be a backup quarterback. So I'm wishing Sorsby all the best. I'm glad he got the help that he needed to distance himself away from gambling, and that he made the right choice by going to the NFL Supplemental Draft. So I feel like that's good on his part and part. But now the Big 12 is still in turmoil, especially when it comes to now the lawsuit that the conference has placed on Texas Tech a couple hours before Sorsby made the decision to go to the draft. So basically, the Irving-based athletic conference filed a federal lawsuit on Sunday against the university and three top officials over the school's intention to allow Sorsby to suit up for the Red Raiders football team for this fall. It came about a week after the temporary injunction court ruling. So basically, the lawsuit names Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, who we discussed in the last episode, who threatened the Big 12 with fines if they decide to punish Sorsby or Texas Tech. So basically, the lawsuit, which was filed in Dallas federal court, said that the Big 12 seeks to "quote unquote" leave no doubt in the minds of its many other upstanding student athletes, its potential student athletes, its rival athletic conferences, and their member institutions, and the general public of exactly where it stands on an important moral, ethical, and legal issue. It asked the judge to declare that the conference has the right to punish Texas Tech, and for an injunction to prevent Paxton or the university to "quote unquote" seeking to deter, coerce, prevent, or punish the Big 12 for enforcing its bylaws. So basically, the judge who has been assigned this case is Karen Grange Scholler, who has been a appointee of President Trump in 2018. She has not She has not yet set a hearing for this case, but the Big 12 Board of Directors released the following statement. Last night, the Big 12 filed a legal complaint asking a federal court to protect the constitutional and contractual rights of the conference and our member institutions to take actions expressly permitted under our bylaws. The Big 12 has long spoken about the dangers of sports wagering by student athletes and remains committed to protecting the competitive integrity of conference competition. Universities should not field players who have bet on their own team games in college athletics. This situation is evolving with pending legal matters and the upcoming start of the football season, and the conference hopes for a timely resolution of these issues. The board continues to keep all options on the table. So basically, the Big 12 is trying to keep the integrity of not only the college football, but all of athletics, especially for them and rival conferences. Because, like I said, the temporary injunction basically showed that athletes can gamble how much they want, and yet won't face no repercussions. So the Big 12 and NCAA are trying to maintain that integrity, making sure that gambling doesn't get to their sports, and may cause certain student athletes to change the way they play to meet a certain quota for their gambling, whether they bet on their own teams or bet against other teams, you know. And like I said, I wholeheartedly agree with what the Big 12 and the NCAA is trying to and trying to protect the integrity of the sport. Okay. Oh, we already went over this. Cody Campbell issued a statement that he will not be a Red Raider. So right here, the Lubbock County injunction sparked immediate widespread outrage in the Universal College Athletics as CBS Sports, and this is a CBS report right here. As y'all know, as we went over in the last episode, that Georgia and Nebraska have declared that they won't play Texas Tech in any other athletic sports. And the Big 12 administrators also met considering sanctioning Texas Tech or Sorsby. Also, you got the SEC and the Big 10 also stating that they most likely won't play Texas Tech in the future at all. At all. Basically, right here, as the lawsuit states, it is critical to both the Big 12's values, reputation, and even financial well being that these interested parties maintain their belief that the Big 12 games are decided by fair athletic performance, particularly where conference games determine standings, postseason opportunities, championship eligibility, and the public reputation of the Big 12 and its member institutions. However, the kicker on June 11th, Paxton sent a letter to the conference which claimed that the Big 12 will be violating state and federal antitrust laws if it attempts to punish Sorsby or Texas Tech. Paxton threatened that the conference and the member schools will face more than $200 million in liability. Really, I believe, yeah, we really went over this last episode that how Paxton threatened the Big 12 would face repercussions if they decide to punish the Red Raiders and Sorsby. So, but here's the thing here. The next day, Oklahoma Attorney General Genter Drummond sent his own letter to the Big 12, which characterized Paxton's letters as meritless, and his assertion that the conference could not punish a member under long-standing rules is factually absurd. So basically, uh, Oklahoma Attorney General Drummond basically is saying that, yeah, basically saying the Big 12 can punish Sorsby or Texas Tech if they want to. He also recommended that the Big 12 should punish Texas Tech and describe his conduct as a shameful chapter in the story of college football. I agree with that. I agree with that because as I stated a little bit not too long ago, how Texas Tech at the time of the injunction they temporarily backed up Sorsby. So yeah, I agree. I agree how this conduct at the time wasn't the best. I mean, they had no other option. I mean, if your quarterback got in trouble and then a judge gave him a temporary injunction, would you back up that quarterback? I mean, I guess I would. I mean, especially if he was going to be the starter this year anyway. But now since he's going to the draft, they're gonna have to use I think Will Hammond. Yeah, Will Hammond. Hammond. So yeah. So as we don't know that as it states just at ESPN, the NCAA asked a Texas appeals court to stay the temporary injunction from Lubbock County District Court. The filing with the Court of Appeals for the 7th District of Texas in Amarillo, I believe that's how you pronounce it. Correct me if I'm wrong. Also asked for a resolution of the case by August 28th because largely it would spare the disruption of Texas Tech's season before September 5th. I think that's their week one. That's when they play week one. The NCAA wrote that the trials court temporary injunction sweeps beyond anything Texas law permits. Attorneys for the NCAA wrote. It undermines the integrity of college sports, rewrites member-adapted rules of the National Collegiate Athletic Association, i.e. the NCAA, immunizes Brandon Sorsby from discipline for admitted and serial violations of NCAA anti-gambling rules, incentivizes a run on courthouses across the country to challenge even the most obvious and straightforward student athlete eligibility decisions and demolishes the status quo. That's 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 a good writing right there. All right, so my thoughts on this whole scenario, like I said, I believe that Sorsby made the right decision on leaving for this summer's supplemental draft, as it would have been the best decision because there would have been a lot of outrage. Teams were threatening not to play Texas Tech at all. It would have looked bad on the Red Raiders' part. So I guess so Sorsby, him leaving was the best. And plus even the commissioner, like I just read from the ESPN article, wished him luck for the supplemental draft. And also, I didn't go over this, but head coach Sonny Dykes also repeated what Commissioner Yormack said. So yeah, like I said, it was the best for Sorsby to leave. I do think that should Texas Tech, but the question remains: should Texas Tech be punished for this? That's a really good question because you could say their conduct at the time was like I said a shameful chapter for in college football. But I mean, if your quarterback got in trouble and then the judge gave him a temporary injunction, would you defend him? If I was the program, I probably would defend him. It may not be the right thing to but it's your quarterback. He's literally your quarterback. He's literally your program. He's or not counting the head coach. He's literally the head of your program. So yeah, but also I feel like this lawsuit it could be necessary there because the Big 12 and NCAA don't want the integrity of the sport. They don't want sports gambling to leak into not only college football but collegiate athletics. So because they don't want athletes, think they can get away with gambling, and then when they get caught, they can just go to a local court, and that court would basically grant them an injunction or a verdict of them not being guilty, and they can continue on playing. So I do feel like the integrity of the sport, in my opinion, it was on the line with this decision, as it really could have been a detriment to college football if the sports gambling verdict ended up not being as bad as people thought it was, and that Sorsby could still gamble and play at the same time. Because there could have been some games in the past that they played a little different, so he can hit the parlay. So I do feel like that the NCAA and the Big 12 are making the right decision, and I'm on their side despite not really being the biggest fan of the NCAA in the past. But this right here, I got to side with the Big 12 and the NCAA on this side, on this one, because just allowing a program or allowing a player to get away with sports gambling and collegiate athletics is just ludicrous in my opinion. But that's all I gotta say for today's episode of the Fourth and Loud podcast. I'm your host, Jalen Sith, signing off, and I will see you sometime.